Hi, I'm Saya and I was an exchange student in Japan from spring 2019 until winter 2020. In this video, I plan on talking about the process of becoming an exchange student, some tips and maybe some expectations that you may have. I hope this will be helpful, especially if you are interested in becoming an exchange student and going to Japan. Everyone's experience is going to be different, so anything that I say in this video, take it with a grain of salt. Things that happen to me may not happen to you or may not happen to anyone else. I'm gonna try and talk about this in a general manner, but also put in some of my experiences so that you can understand what it might actually be like. I always knew I wanted to become an exchange student ever since I was a little kid. My first option was to go to Japan. If I remember correctly, my next options were something like South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, but I was lucky enough to be able to go to my first option. I started to look into becoming an exchange student about at the end of middle school because I knew I wanted to do a high school exchange. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is different programs and different organizations that you can go through. This part may differ very much depending on where you are from and what country you want to go to. Some organizations don't have exchange programs in every single country. They might only have a few countries to select from, and every single organization doesn't operate in your country. The first organization that I ran across was an organization called UFU. I think that's how you pronounce it. I was looking at someone's Instagram when I saw that she was using this organization to go to Japan, but that didn't end up working out because I called them because on the website that I saw that the age range was from 2005 to 2002. And take in mind that this was like 3 years ago. I'm born in 2001 and I think I was like 15 turning 16 and I was already too old. Like I was just finishing middle school and I was just like, what? Like I'm not even a high schooler, how can I be too old? I don't know why that is, but some organizations do only take like really young exchange students only. The next program that I applied for was Rotary Youth Exchange Program. If you have an opportunity to apply for the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, you might want to because it's by far one of the most inexpensive ones out there. Of course, going to exchange is never cheap. For Rotary, the problem is that they only choose very little applicants. Your local Rotary club, if you have one, will probably only send one person. It's a big competition to be that one person. I'm not really sure how it goes, but I wasn't chosen, so I started to look for another option. And this is where I came across AFS. There was this AFS exchange student in my school. For AFS, I believe it is different with every single country. What was it? I first actually called the Finnish AFS center and checked if they are already taking applicants because I was kind of early and the website hadn't updated yet, so they were still talking about exchange year 2018. So I called and they were like, yeah, it's gonna be up in like a month or so or something and you can apply then. And it was kind of like first apply, first served kind of situation. At least in Finland's case, every single country is different. Then I went on the AFS website. I made my own profile, I think. Then you had a web application where you sent your picture, your information, your middle school GDP. After that, I believe that you chose your country options. Then it was a lot of back and forth with sending different kinds of paper documents, getting your insurances. I also had to go to an interview. At the interview, it was like an AFS volunteer that interviewed me, and it was just really general stuff like, why did you want to go to Japan, and why do you want to become an exchange student? It was a lot about like stuff like homesickness and like, what do you think about other cultures, and can you adapt to another culture and that kind of stuff. Oh, the light's kind of like fading. I hope this is still fine. Yeah, I can't really do anything for the light. After that, I got an email saying that you have been chosen to become an AFS exchange student and your destination will be Japan. And this is where I want to talk about becoming an exchange student. You might not be able to choose what country you can go to. There are some programs where you can apply for a specific program. For example, I think it's STS or EF. There you apply for a certain country, so you know that you're either going to that country or you're not going at all. For AFS, first get to know if you're accepted to become an exchange student or not, and then you get to know what country you get to go to. I was lucky because I was able to go to Japan. Finland is a pretty popular exchange destination for Japanese students. So it's kind of like an exchange. It's an exchange for this country. They have this amount of people that want to go to this country, so like the same amount of people will go to the other country. And that's why if you're from not that popular country, you might not have any open spots for Japan, or you'll have like one or two. So I know people who first applied for their AFS and they were the only person to be selected from that country. And I even know people who were the only person to be selected from that country and they didn't know what country they're going to be going to until it was handed out to them, like, you're going to Japan. It's gonna be either more difficult or easier to go through AFS depending on where you're from and where you want to go. I also forgot to mention, before I went to the exchange, we had a camp to prepare us for the exchange, and then after the exchange we would have had a camp, but I wasn't able to go. I got a question about my host family. For me, I had the same host family for the whole entire year. There were some problems, not major ones, just like small things that happen anyway, whether or not it's a host family or if it's your real family. In general, they were really nice, but I was maybe lucky in that sense. Some exchange students already know that they're gonna have multiple families. Also, I know cases in which the exchange student wanted to change host families. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to disclose any names in this video, or and all of the things that I'm talking about are hypothetical. Is that the word? Like, they're not real. Hypothetical, is that the word? Changing a host family is harder if it's the exchange student that wants to change the host family. My eyes hurt. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just gonna give some, I guess these are pretty general, but I feel like these would have been the things that, now that I think about it, before I went to exchange, I would have wanted someone to tell me these things. Number one is that exchange is an amazing experience. I would definitely recommend it if you make it that way. Does that make sense? There are going to be things that you don't have control over, but don't be the one who ruins your exchange. Like, I know so many people who They could have had a lot better exchange if they weren't so difficult. Make the most out of every situation. Don't get stuck on the bad stuff, because then you're just gonna be spreading negativity, and that's not fun. I feel like no one talks about this. There might be people that you don't get along with. Don't start any fights. Try to make the most out of your exchange. Be positive. Okay, actually I'm not that much of a positive person. Second thing is learn the language. Learn it. If you're going to Japan especially, learn the language. Learn it. You don't need to know anything when you go there, depending on your exchange program. Some programs might require that you have studied it for a few years beforehand. It might be hard in the beginning, but the beginning is the best part, because the amount of progress that you can do with regular study, you're gonna see your skills skyrocket. You're gonna know like 200 times more than you did yesterday. Usually you'll go to Japan a little bit before school starts. That is the best time to start studying Japanese, because a lot of host families might not be able to speak English at all. In general, you won't have this lost feeling when you can understand what's being spoken around you. My eyes hurt. They're gonna be super red after this. This number 3 is really something that I wish I had heard when I first arrived in Japan. No matter what organization you're going through, that organization is gonna have a lot of rules, and they're usually really strict, especially if you're going to Japan. When I arrived, they had this arrival orientation, and it was basically 4 days of just going through the rules. I just thought like, what did I do? Like, this was the worst decision of my life. It's gonna be a year of not being able to do anything. But at that point, I wish I told myself, like, do not take it so seriously. You have to follow the rules. Like, there's no out of that. You don't get time to digest it. Like, give it some time. It's gonna get better. There are so many things that like drove me insane. Like, I could have never expected that, but it's reality. But in general, it was a positive experience. Like, there's so many things that I got to do, and the fact that when you learn the language and you get to interact with locals and be so close to life there, it's so different from going on a vacation. It's such a different thing. I feel like every time I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna feel different about the country, and especially the area where I lived. Like, it's gonna be nostalgic, you know? But those were my main 3 tips and some of my experiences. I hope this video was of some use to you. Maybe thinking about doing another video, a different video on like expectations versus reality, or like things that surprised me while being on exchange in Japan. This was my experience, what I felt like I should share. Bye.